Is is a Randa cooking lesson, dinner, and the Mound House event on Friday?
Yeah, it's like that one. The gymnastic is like a beach walk and everything. The cooking one they did for the beach elementary.
Or Beach Kids Foundation.
I don't want a beach walk. I want cooking lessons.
The person who bid on that has not gotten back. That's how they.
I'd be happy to take your place. Who did bid on it? I know. I'd love.
I haven't. I've been here all day.
Yes. Shorts too. It used to be not. Joanne, they do everything. You know what I would always have with you? Always have something like that with you. Not only that, but inside some of the cathedrals, it's genuinely cold because of all the stone. No. No. I can't think of a place. I mean, in the Sagrada Familia there. By the way, did I tell you to make reservations for that online before you go? Okay, good. Oh, awesome. Awesome.
And something about the happy music. Always stay away. Yes. Did you come from home? I said, when I came, it wasn't bad.
I know. Well, you know what? They're pouring
That's way to go. That's the way to go.
If the truck shows up,
That's the
we're
way to
stuck
go.
for 10 extra minutes.
That's excellent.
My problem is I had to come over. I had to leave this morning, come over,
Wonderful.
get home, turn around,
So I'll
get
call
here.
it to order and then turn it over to you. Okay, everyone. We'll call this meeting, it's a joint session of the Marine Resource Task Force and the Fort Myers Beach Town Council. It's 2:36 p.m. on March 21st, 2019. And I will pass this off to the chairman of the Marine Resource Task Force, Mr. Bill Veach.
Well, first off, congratulations to the new council members, and thanks for meeting with us like this, because it really is good for us to know what you're thinking and to be able to be a more effective committee. So I really do appreciate you taking the time and the effort to meet with us. And we have a pretty full agenda, so we'll kind of go through. First, would the council, would you like to meet some of the people in the room?
Yes.
Sure. Go around.
Go around. Go ahead, Shannon.
I'm Shannon Mapes. I've been on the Marine Resource Task Force for 2.5 years, about. I just had my picture, my little story in the paper about glyphosate. Yeah, we do have a lot to cover. So
Shannon, give a little of your background.
I work in a hospital lab. I have a degree in laboratory science, a minor in chemistry. I've worked in laboratory, many different research labs, cancer patient labs, reference labs, and hospital labs. I'm sort of retired, but they make me work more during season, so I just got out of traffic. I know Roxanne and Joanne and Anita, and I have met Bruce. I don't know you, though, so I do. I'm already a fan because I remember your quote saying you wanted to ban fertilizer, so we all like you.
Thanks, Shannon.
My name is Steve Johnson. I've been on the Marine Resource Task Force here for maybe about a year or so, more or less. Background-wise, I was a general manager for a laboratory analytical manufacturer, made analytical testing equipment for industrial laboratories. I've got a biology and a business background. I've been retired for a few years and enjoying the salt life here, and that's why I came. So these water problems are a serious woe. And I think this is a fantastic advisory board. The group is terrific. Our leader, Bill's done a terrific job, and we've got a lot to do today. So I'll send it by.
Thanks, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should already know me by now.
Ray Burns.
And we're all big fans.
Yes, Ray Burns, Town Environmental Technician.
I'm Patty Festi, and I'm new to the group as of December, representing the Estero Island Garden Club. I don't really know much about science compared to the other people on the committee, but I do like science. So my husband and I are retired here. We own a home and love it, and also care about the environment on the island. So I'm hoping that I can help with that.
Patty, thank you for your service.
Bruce Butcher, and about the closest I've ever been to the lab is getting a blood test. I had one this week. And I'm on the town council.
All right.
Greg Holmes, I think I've been on this 4 or 5 years now, Bill. I think it'll be up to the third time. I didn't ask for it, but I guess must have been
That's what happens when you don't show up.
But I do think you've done a great job, and you've really taken some very interesting actions for the city to look at, because there are big challenges of keeping our environment clean. And I'm a scientist myself. I'm a doctorate in pharmacology. So the last 14 years retired, I've done nothing but doing ocean advocate stuff for saving whales and saving sharks. So this is a really neat action items this committee is looking at, and they got a big agenda here, and you're going to see it's pretty exciting stuff.
What did you say you were a doctor of what?
Pharmacology.
Oh.
Drugs.
Good man. I'm among greatness. Ray Murphy, Town Council. RAY.
Yes.
I've said that a few times already, Ray. And I remember when we started this was one of our first committees after the LPA. And
Was that back in the day?
It was back in the day.
I wasn't going to say it, Joanne. I wasn't going to say it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you owe me a beer for that. But someone soon afterward coined the acronym, or the name for MRTF, MRF, which has really gotten under my skin for all these years, because anyone with the name Murphy growing up being called Murph, we all know that that's a gross misspelling of that. So anyhow, but I'm going to let it pass and just try to get past that. And Bill, you go ahead.
Okay, well, I don't think I really need to go over me very much, but I'm the chair of Murph. I've been for probably 5-6 years, I think. I joined when there wasn't really much of a Murph committee. They were not really doing much, and then the second meeting, the chair quit, and I was appointed. So I think you look the other way, and suddenly you're the chair.
That's what happens when you show up.
That's what happens when you show up. But I'm an engineer and businessman. I'm really not a scientist, but I do love science. And
But you think scientifically.
but you have to. If you're gonna put a lot of effort into designing something from an engineer, you want to make sure that the
I
basis
guess
is
that's a
sound,
good
or else you
point.
waste
That's
a
a
lot of
good
time.
point.
So,
Sure.
yeah. All right. So let's go through the agenda. I don't have the latest one that you just made up. Ray?
We still have council members who haven't introduced themselves yet, if they would like
I'm
to.
Anita Saracita.
Joanne Champ.
Roxanne Hossa for us.
Okay. And I have the most updated request list for things to discuss here.
Okay.
There was more added on, but it did not get into your packet in time for it to show up there.
Pass it on.
There you go.
I'm going to pass this other thing with it too. Is that okay, Bill?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start
Please.
talking about this stuff while we're passing papers around. The first thing is this ADA accessibility onto the beach. That was something that Town Council asked us to look into. We had 2 different avenues that we were looking at with this. One is similar to what Bonita Beach or Barefoot Beach has, where I think Collier County, they have mechanical beach wheelchairs that are available for anybody to use. And in Barefoot Beach, they're unlocked. Just anybody can use them. At the other places where there's not a gate, then they're chained up and someone has to go and unlock them. So we suggested, I think, to council a couple places to do that. And the other option was to do a private partnership with people who rent these things out to do a voucher system. And that's kind of where we left that. I don't think there's anything more that we need to do, because I think we handed it off to you guys.
Julie, you want it?
Joanne Champ, just hopping in, I think this happened while you were out of the country, that the county came forward about the new ramps at Lynn Hall. And in that discussion, we said, where are your wheelchairs? These are wheelchair accessible ramps, where are the wheelchairs, sort of. And they said that on Sanibel, other locations, they get vendors that they work with. And so we asked that they would use a vendor on the island. So I just provide that information to you because maybe the town could coordinate at Newton Park, if they want to, unless they want to buy one, they could do the same thing with whatever the county's gonna do at Lynn Hall and Bowditch.
Okay.
If I might, back in the day, when I was on council before, we were going through the whole licensing and ordinance procedure with the people that rent the stuff on the beach.
That's right.
And as I remember, we had 2 people come forward at that time promising that they would, for basically eternity, offer free wheelchair as part of their services, as part of the fact that they got to operate on the beach. That was part of the deal that they granted to the town. I never heard that anybody stopped
One
doing
of them
that.
is gone.
One of them is gone? And do we know which
I
one
don't
it
know
is
about
that remains?
No, I don't.
It seems to me that that's something we should be encouraging them to do. We are allowing them to operate on the beach. It seems like they could at least provide at each location maybe one beach accessible wheelchair. Just an idea. Rather than us having to go buy them or.
Because I know that, I think that, that there were 2 vendors down by the Wyndham, and they have a golf cart anyway, which they used to set up, and they
Right.
were shuffling the customers back and forth, and they already did it with some of their existing customers, but they were willing to expand that. But I think one was it West Coast Cabanas.
It was Chachi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I don't know what happened, but he left then.
Yeah, there's a whole backstory for that. But Chachi West Coast Cabana Company is no longer operating on beach, so he can't provide that service anymore since the company is no longer here.
So, Ray, oh, that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea.
And I've spoken to other beach vendors who have no issue with, dropping people to a chair and back and that whole deal. So I think if we made it more of a, sorry, my microphone keeps shaking. If we made it more of a mandatory request through town, I don't think it would be twisting too many arms to make that request.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
May I make one final comment?
Sure.
Just then, we might want to update our website. I can bring it and show you like what Lee County and other places do. They usually have an ADA link, and you just hit on it, and it'll give that kind of information. So maybe we could do that.
I know there was discussion about council coming up with an entire ADA section instead of just having it occur every now and then, to actually have something that states it, because that'd also be a good, it's not just regulations, it's a resource for people who need it. Okay, so the fertilizer ordinance that we proposed, to change the fertilizer ordinance, I understand that there was some questions, legal questions, about whether you could modify the ordinance without rendering it invalid based on the preemptive laws from the state. Oh.
Conflict.
Who?
A citizen meeting set up, so.
Why don't we jump ahead and come back?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's come back to that one.
And I think the glyphosate maybe ordinance
Yes.
is in the same boat. Okay. The glyphosate experiment, we marked off some sections in that lot. It's the interest of Bay Oaks. And Shannon, why don't you give us an update?
Well, it's in the paper today. It's in the paper today. I didn't want to use, I was very adamantly against using Roundup as one of the squares, because we're trying to say don't use Roundup, but I'm going to spray this section right here with Roundup. I'm not doing that. So I used a control. Bill used a hoe, which she didn't include your pictures. I don't know why she didn't do that. One was a control, and then I used Austin's formula that he uses on town properties, and my homemade formula, and an organic one that is citrus oil. Smells really good. I found that calling on the island and Home Depot and Lowe's and the San Carlos Ace Hardware, nobody carries anything except glyphosate. And I asked the girl at Goods, can you go look at the back of the read me what it says? Oh, okay. So she sees Roundup, but then next to it, oh wait, here's something else. And then I said, what's the main ingredient? Glyphosate. Oh, never mind. So there's no organic available on the island, but there are homemade examples. Austin makes these 55-gallon barrels full of it. He uses 30% vinegar, which is worked better than mine, because you can get 30% vinegar at like Home Depot, but Walmart sells the 5%. So my whole experiment actually worked better than I thought it would. Austin's was yellow and brown after about 30 hours, because he's texted me a picture with a smiley face like, I'm winning. The second, but yeah, it was pretty funny. And his smells really good too, like
It
cinnamon oil.
does. It makes the whole office smell like cinnamon.
The second, very close second, was the Avenger, the organic Avenger, which I had to get online. It's on the Home Depot website, but it's not at any location. I don't know, in the tri-state area you can find it, so I had to order it online. So after I get my, Bill wants me to write up my findings as a scientific research paper. So after I get it written up, I'm gonna try to go every place around here and try to convince them to carry Avenger at least. Maybe, and also 30% vinegar. Cause that did work better than mine. I just used the vinegar you get at the grocery store. So I think I did show that it works pretty well. I mean, overnight, Austin's was pretty brown. Avenger worked pretty quickly after that. And they pretty much killed everything. Everything's still dead. I had 2 people tell me that only the top will die, and I need to keep watching it because the root's not dead. So I'm gonna keep up watching it probably for the next 2 weeks. I'm leaving to go out of town on the 4th, but I'm gonna keep watching it, so.
Where is this weed bed?
The new entrance for Bay Oaks, right next to the little sidewalk, they cleared that lot.
Oh.
We bought.
It's right there.
Oh,
There's
God.
a little, Bill put little tape.
That microphone is a problem.
Is that the laptop?
No.
Oh, it's the one that John is
Oh, it's
sitting
this
with.
one?
This,
So, anyway, I was very happy with my
Well,
results.
that's
I really wanted to
fantastic.
get that done and
Fantastic,
show
Shannon.
people, that it does
Yeah.
work, so that was mine.
Now, one thing, I think, once, if we have favorable results from the stuff, then maybe, is it possible that we could have the town distribute some? That if people want to get the weed killer? Because I don't think it's very expensive, right?
You mean the stuff that Austin uses
Yeah.
or the,
Avenger.
well, Roundup per gallon, ready-made Roundup is about $22 a gallon, made up, ready to spray. The stuff that I make is less than $2 a gallon. I don't know what Austin's is since he buys it in bulk. It's probably less than that. And Avenger is about $2.50 a gallon. So everything is a whole.
Avenger is
like a-
only $2.50 a gallon?
Well, to make it up, because I got it concentrated and to make it up. So everything is about 1/10 of the price of Roundup, which right there. And then there was also at Lowe's 1 bottle of this blue stuff, and it was like deaminated fatty acid. But on the other side, you turned it around and it said, harmful to humans and animals, and do not use in an aquatic environment. So I didn't use it. I still have the receipt. I might take it back. I don't know.
So what about bleach or
I
chlorine?
wouldn't apply bleach. What do you think, Ray?
Well, I mean, it is very good at killing things, but I don't recommend you using it on your yard if you want to replant an area or have other living things come back to that area. Kind of like salt. You don't want to salt the ground to get rid of weeds if you want more things to be growing in that area, because salt kills everything, and it kills everything for a long time. So you're going to get nothing but a bare patch of dirt. Kind of the same with the bleach.
Bleach is not good for the waterways either at all.
Yes.
It's great to
Well,
have it
I
since-
just
yeah.
mentioned it, my swimming pool occasionally overfills when we have a hurricane or something. And I get dead spots in my yard as a result of that.
Yeah, that's probably
So it's
why.
effective.
Oh, it'll kill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
It does, it just takes a few years.
May I ask then, is Avenger, I've seen on TV where they say there's new commercials that just started, and it's organic weed killer.
Yeah, that's why I got it.
Is that truly
No.
glyphosate free?
Yeah, it's 70% citrus oil,
Okay.
and then I think just water, diluting it down to 70%.
Okay, we've talked about this before, because my husband always does the weed control, like at the Art Association in the summer for them. So he told him he won't do it anymore and use Roundup, so
Right.
he can use Avenger.
Yeah, but you
This
have
summer.
to just online. Just
Order it online.
Yeah.
Thank you, just want to get it clear.
Until I get it in the
They
source.
have it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon too. Yeah,
Or make up the formula that the town uses.
yeah.
Between citrus and cinnamon, I think it's probably not a good idea if you're dieting.
The citrus was nice, yeah.
Since John's back, can we go back to?
Okay. So we're talking about there was some question about whether or not we could modify the fertilizer ordinance without invalidating it.
That is, yes. There's been some question regarding that issue. Councilmember, thank you.
That's the actual code.
When this issue was discussed at MNP, I believe it was, or at a council meeting, Councilman Butcher asked whether, there were any state laws that preempted this area. And there are, with respect to the existing ordinance that the town has. After the town adopted its ordinance, there was a push at the state level to preempt, and it almost happens on a yearly basis. By way of example, there is a push in Tallahassee this year to preempt non-plastic straws that is being widely adopted by many jurisdictions across the state. The plastic industry is using its clout to try and get that area preempted. So what the legislature did is it directed FDEP to develop a model ordinance for fertilizer use. And what the statute dealing with that specifically says in the section in the state statutes is 403.9337. That's 403.9337. Model ordinances for Florida-friendly fertilizer use on urban landscapes. And it very specifically says in subsection 3 of the statute, of that section, any county or municipal government that adopted its own fertilizer use ordinance before January 1st, 2009 is exempt from this section. Ordinance adopted or amended on or after January 1st, 2009 must substantially conform to the most recent version of the model fertilizer ordinance and are subject to subsections 1 and 2 as applicable. Now, the reference to subsection 1 and 2 being applicable are very important, because what that section of the state statute says, that unless you adopt the state model ordinance as is, if you want to be more restrictive, you have to go through a very detailed public hearing and public process of verifying, as they say, the local government has demonstrated as part of a comprehensive program to address non-point sources of nutrient pollution, which is science-based and economically and technically feasible, okay? And that also means enforceable. That additional or more stringent standards than the model ordinance are necessary in order to adequately address urban fertilizer contributions to non-point source nutrient loading to water body. Bunch of legalese that says if you want something more stringent, you've got to go to DEP, to the University of Florida, to the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and to, that's it. Those 3 entities provide your study material, have them say that it meets the requirements of the statute, that it's science-based, economically and technically feasible, and only then can you adopt an ordinance that is more stringent than the model ordinance that the state has adopted. So if your ordinance as it exists today is more stringent than the model ordinance, leave it alone.
Ours isn't.
Then adopt the model ordinance. And that's what you're gonna, that's what you, no. I understand that it is more stringent in some regards.
Not some regards, not all.
If it's any portion of it is more stringent than the model ordinance, you have to, in order to keep it.
None of ours is more stringent right now.
Okay.
Ours is less stringent.
All right.
So we don't even have the model.
Then all you can do is adopt the model if that's what you want to do.
Actually, I've been talking to the DEP, and I think I can do 1 and 2 and A and B.
Well, how much is that going to cost us? That's always a good question.
I work for free.
I know you work
I
for
can get their
free,
data.
but-
No, I can get their data.
My job is to tell you what hoops you have to jump through in order to be able to get to where you want to be. If you want something more restrictive than the model ordinance, you have to go through that process.
I've been talking to Rebecca at the DEP.
I'm not disagreeing.
No, I'm just saying, Estero Bay is considered an outstanding waterway, which means that it has more protection than this is saying. So I can actually go through the outstanding waterway pathway and get data.
Again, I'm not passing judgment on whether or not it merits doing so or not. That's not my job.
What is more stringent with the model than what we have today?
This is the model that I'm talking about. He's saying, well, it's right
Not
here.
your model, the state model.
This is the state model.
Okay, and you're
I have
saying,
another copy if you want.
and you're saying that's more stringent than what we have?
Yes, it is.
So
In
what-
some ways it is.
In some ways, so.
You said always it is.
And in
No.
some ways, is it not,
In some ways it's equal, in some ways we are less stringent.
Joanne?
My question is, has MRF actually done an evaluation of the model ordinance compared to our ordinance and made a specific recommendation? Because that would appear to be the next step then, based on the attorneys.
Yeah, unless you did that last meeting.
We didn't have, their, like the DEP's model ordinance to go by. We went by Sanibel's, Fort Myers, Lee County, City of Bonita Springs, and ours. We didn't use this one, but after I did read this one, I saw that ours is not as strict as their DEP's model is.
I'll tell you what, let's do this. Why don't we put it on MERS agenda? We'll write up a comparison and a potential strategy going forward.
How come I'm hearing in the news right now that Naples is going through this same procedure that we went through with the ordinance? Why would they bother be going through? Because they're saying that they want to eliminate Roundup and so forth, and just like us. But why would they be going through that process now if that's less than what's on the state books?
Two different things, two different issues. One, the model ordinance and what is being, the question that I understand is being asked is, it deals with the application, how you apply it, what are the regulations that deal with it. The other one, and I always mess up the name, Roundup. The Roundup prohibition, that's separate. That's a distinct issue. There's two ordinances. There is no preemption on the prohibition of at least for now. There is no state preemption on adopting an ordinance limiting or prohibiting the use of Roundup. So that is different than fertilizer. Yeah. Roundup is to kill weeds. Fertilizer is to make everything greener.
And staff has I always mess this word up too, and I shouldn't mess up this word. The glyphosate ban ordinance is prepped and ready for you guys. So whenever it wants to go forward.
Yeah, if you want to do it now before the legislature has a chance and opportunity to preempt it.
Move that forward.
Okay.
I'll say yes. If we hear from the other counselors, we got 4, 5, 3, 4,
And just to go back to your point, RA.
I'd say, bring it to council right away before the preemption.
Collier County, I read some of the things that they're talking about, and they're actually considering eliminating the summer ban on fertilizers because they think that, and we had a guy come in who gave us a presentation saying about how things are growing more in the summer, but their regulation says, you can't apply it if there's a chance of imminent rain of 2 inches or more within like 12 hours or 24 hours, which just seems to be completely unenforceable to me because it means you got to be a weatherman.
Yeah, exactly. An accurate weatherman.
And we know hit and miss the thunderstorms are here.
That means I can only do it, I can't do it in my front yard, but I can do it in my backyard sometimes. Here in Florida.
Okay, so we're going to move the glyphosate ordinance to council for approval. The fertilizer is going to be removed, is going to be reviewed by MRF. And we heard about the glyphosate experiment. Ray, did you have something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to know if there was a specific date that would work best, or is just as soon as possible.
Just work that out with Roger.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, so now you're on to the Green Yard Award.
Okay. This is something that we, I kind of intentionally roped someone from the garden club into this. There's a lot of yard certifications. We want to create a certification for people who are doing a good job with their yard and making it island friendly. This would be something, maybe a little sign in their yard, recognition, some guidance to say how you can get from where you are to there. And this draft, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet, I'm afraid, is explaining the big categories about what we would do. The Florida friendly yard certification goes on for pages and pages, and it's not that well suited for us, I think, when I look through it. So we want to come up with our own certification that is specific to our island.
Anybody else want to go first? Sorry, since I'm the liaison to MRF, I always have, I'm always in it and know it. But I love it. It's great. I'm not sure about the Green Yard Award, the name, because to me that smacks of I'm going to put fertilizer on it. Maybe it's just because I'm from Ohio. So to me, it's almost like Native Yard Award or Island Yard Award or some other word other than green.
It's not an award, I suppose, right? Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
The
It's just the
But-
green,
but
to
the
me, means
island-
pour some fertilizer on
But
that
But
baby.
that sounds even better, though. Island yard certification sounds good.
Or something. But other than
Island
that,
yard,
love it, thank you.
Yeah, well, it was part of our green program when we had this, yeah.
Investigated, yeah.
No,
No, I don't, yeah, I think we're,
you're good. Thank you, John. Okay,
okay, so that's, I guess, more of an FYI. because-
It's great. It's
So we're
fantastic.
You know
marching ahead
what?
with it.
It's fantastic.
Ways, hey, John, before you leave, on this ways to reduce plastic trash, are we all fully aware of what we're preempted in terms of plastic bags? Did the state let you have, like a barrier island, do an experiment on plastic bags or not? Are you aware?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, fine, thank you, that's all.
I do know that, again, some local governments were successful in. I'm sorry. If I remember correctly, I actually recall having read something very recently where the city of Coral Gables essentially said to the legislature, kiss my, and adopted and is implementing a no a plastic bag ordinance. So we'll see how far that goes.
But not no
I'll-
plastic bag, no single-use plastic bags.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
What I call the grocery bag
Yes,
preemption.
yes.
Okay, but they can still be sued, right? The city?
Yeah, I mean,
They-
at
so-
some point in time, I'm sorry, at some point in time, one of the, some Publix, most likely,
I know.
is going to.
But Publix complied.
Um,
Right. It's probably a restaurant.
I don't know, but someone,
Retail.
I
because it's so widely used, restaurants now for takeout and things of that nature. I suspect that probably the industry is going to reach out and find a small business who is willing to say, yeah, sure, I'll lend my name to it, and it will be, and it will end up in the courts. So I will keep you posted on that.
Yeah, I do think Coral Gables has a significantly higher population and average income than we do, so they have a lot deeper pockets to fight this kind of stuff.
They did it in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay, skip it.
Okay, so Mulholland Award, I think that our next meeting, we'll be looking at the nominations and making our recommendations to council. And I think there are some really good candidates for this, so
Great.
hopefully it'll be a difficult choice for you.
Good.
Okay, the non-point source pollution project by Penny, you wanna?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I can, but from my notes, were you
Yeah,
gonna go over?
no, go ahead, go.
We'll jump in, whenever. All right, so Penny Jarrett said she's gonna get a grant from NOAA to do a non-point source pollution research project on our island, which is cool. She's gonna pick, with the help of Dr. Michael Parsons of FGCU, she's gonna pick 200 sites around Fort Myers Beach, Gulfside, Bayside, and some canals and on the outflows. So she's going to be like, that's a lot of spots, 200 hopefully, she said. And then Dr. Michael Parsons is going to, he's going to have some grad students collate the data and find the biggest sources that we have for, I don't even know what her criteria for testing are, though. Probably,
She wasn't exactly sure what the criteria was, aside from testing for, I think she had mentioned nitrogen and dissolved oxygen and phosphorus. Kind of the similar things that that the town is currently testing for at our outfall locations, the 13 test sites. So looking at those parameters and finding the hotspot locations and doing educative work on those hotspot locations for where pollution is existing.
she did this because Sanibel, I don't know if you all know, has a really good, you can click on Sanibel from their town website, and you can click on any neighborhood, and it'll tell you the quality of your runoff. Of course, the golf course is the worst. Luckily, we don't have golf courses. Golf courses exempted themselves, by the way, from fertilizer ordinances. Yay. So just to throw that in. Anyway, so that's pretty neat. Anywhere you pick, if you can find it on their website, I found it, but it's kind of neat how they did it. They also have extensive groundwater studies they've always also done, testing all their groundwater.
Mhm.
So they have a really good model, and she wants to kind of do the same thing for Fort Myers Beach, to kind of have a, I don't know, she said it's the way, you know, kind of, she said she thought of it in the morning when she had had a cup of coffee. So she said in the future, she wants it to be like the Sanibel model. We can pinpoint our sources of runoff.
Excuse me, what does non-point mean?
So that means something you can't point to and say that's a pollutant. So I picture it like you see a big, ugly sewage pipe pouring directly into the water. That's a point solution. You can point at it and say, yes, that's a problem. Non-point solution is something that's kind of everywhere. So air pollution in general, like we don't have anything that would produce vast amounts of air pollution aside from cars. But when you're looking at the actual air quality, it's like you can't point at direct molecules, be like, oh, that's our problem. So that's the difference.
So when you're testing 200 areas, she's going to, oh, well, we have a problem here. What would be the problem? Well, on Sanibel, the biggest problem is their golf course, which goes along with they fertilize a lot. I went to one of the Sanibel talks, and he said they're working really hard to get their golf course in compliance, he called it. Yeah, we don't use reclaimed water, Sanibel does, and that has a lot of phosphorus. So we have a lot, it's kind of a little easier for us to pick and choose. She kind of wanted us to, I heard Dr. Michael Parsons' speech on it. He kind of gave an overview, and he went to where did he go? Chamber of Commerce. I heard, yeah, we were there that day, Steve, remember? Yeah, and she kind of wanted us, MRF, to go to the town council and say, she's kind of asking for your support. She wants you to know about it. She wants you to be aware that she's looking to do this big thing that'll hopefully eventually lead to, we can pinpoint our pollution and do something about it.
Great.
So, yeah, and she wanted us to, she said even if she doesn't get everything done, she's still going to do the NOAA project, which is a grant of, I don't remember what she said.
$2,000.
Yeah, and then she'll get the kits, and then she's going to have a training day, so everybody knows how to use the kits. The trick is you have to sample all the same day at the same time, and you have to all be trained, and all the samples have to be preserved the same, so you get across the board a snapshot of one day. So
You're going to use a lot of Florida Gulf Coast students.
yeah, and they're going to hopefully collate the data for her. And then Dr. Parsons also said he could possibly get more staff and more money for her. So we'll see. That sounds really good.
Interesting.
But we were all for it. We thought it was great. So, but she wanted us to present it to you, to the town council, let you know.
Fantastic. Thank you, Penny.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, at the end, if we can find if there's like a canal or two that are contributing an inordinate amount of, disproportionate amount of pollutants, then that's something to go to the neighborhood and say, what are you doing? Is it a lawn service company that's putting something on, or take it from there? Okay. Now the reusable bag update.
Yes. The MRF decided that the best vendor option would be Krusty Pete's. We've got Bill's friend made some artwork, which is, I think it looks great.
I love it.
So that's what's going on the bags. The order has been placed with Krusty Pete's. The first batch of bags has been shipped in for processing. So they are going to be here pretty soon. If you guys want to see an example of the size and dimensions of the bags, I have that. It's just at my desk. I need to go grab it.
To see it.
Okay, I'll be right back.
And do you have a date when you're going to need the artwork? The final artwork?
The what?
Would you have a date when when the final artwork is needed?
Oh, no, I do not have a
It's so
concrete date.
cute.
But I have forwarded that artwork to Krusty Pete's for printing. So and I asked him to please get in touch with the artist, since he had said that he already had the information, to double check if there was any extra changes that needed to be made from when I got the copy on March 12th. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right, gonna go get the bag.
It does. It does. Did everybody see this?
No.
Show it to Murphy.
That's instead of this, which is just pretty much text and some
Yeah,
clip art
that's
that
going to be much more desirable.
I threw together. The guy who drew this is a musician and a former syndicated cartoonist.
It's great.
Anybody else see it? You got one? Okay.
So the bags will be coming, what was the total number of bags you were able to get?
These were a little more expensive, so they were bigger, but
Just around 3,000?
yeah, something like
About
that.
3,000? Yeah.
But it's, you know, I mean, this is, considering all that we went through with dealing with China and then dead end, this is certainly a lot
So-
simpler way to do it.
So maybe we could give these to people who come in and sign a pledge that they won't use glyphosate? I mean, can we hook this somehow to another goal? Rather than just legislating all the time.
Give some incentive.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
And maybe you can have a card that they
Nice.
get that has the
Nice.
recipe for the fertilizer, or the non-glyphosate, whatever, yeah.
well, this is the one, the American made one, the one made in Georgia? I thought it was a bigger bag. It was-
That's the biggest bag that I've got
okay.
from the
I don't
samples that
believe
y'all
this
brought
is-
me.
I don't believe this is the one. I think there was another sample that we're supposed to
Those are the only two I have at my desk.
Okay, well,
I
I don't
have
think,
that one and a smaller one.
no, I think this is, okay, what we did is we had him, he came up with like 3 different samples for us. This was made in the USA and it's expensive. There's 2 others. The bag is actually made, probably China, and then he does the printing. But for the price of this, it was actually one that was bigger than these bags. This one is not very wide. So
That's
I
what I
can-
have at my desk. I
if
don't
you-
have
if you s-
anything bigger.
if you selected Krusty Peas, I can get a sample.
Yes.
But it's actually a thicker bag and it's larger from what I understand.
Okay.
It's a bigger version of the other sample we have.
Well, good. I'm glad it's bigger than what we've got.
But this is a nice bag, even just as it is.
Has
Yeah.
anyone talked to Goodwill or any of those type of organizations that sometimes do things like this? About making bags?
Selling bags?
All about making the bags.
Well, there's some organizations, at least up north.
Lark,
that
not
used
Lark,
to be.
Lark.
They get people that had disabilities and
Yeah.
they do things.
License plates.
I know.
Want to branch
Here's
out.
the other alternative that I shared with Bill. This comes in many different sizes,
It's made out of recycled
made out of
paper.
magazines,
Huh.
and the handle is twisted newspaper. Whoop, I'll pass it around. Go right ahead.
Well, this is all recyclable itself.
Yes. No cost.
Where'd you get that?
Thailand.
But I do understand what you're saying about trying to, I know that the Sanibel Sea School, they did their first bag and they paid like $2 a bag for it. The next one they went and they did, and I actually have a sample at home, I think. It's a thinner bag and they made it at a women's cooperative in Haiti, but the price went up to like $7 a bag. And like going with the American made, actual textiles increases the price too. But one thing you're talking about distribution, I think we have to give some thought to is come up with a concrete set of rules about how we're going to distribute these. Because I've gotten calls from everyone from Norm's Parking to the Beach Baptist saying they give out hundreds of plastic bags and they're more than willing to give out all of our bags in an afternoon.
Why are they giving out plastic bags?
The Beach Baptist does their farmers market.
Yeah, but I mean, Norm's Parking, why would they be giving?
No, they're just saying, he just says he has a lot of people who come through there, and if we want him to distribute our bags for free, then he'll do that.
Oh, I see.
I would start at the farmer's market at the Beach
Santini.
Baptist Church and the farmer's market at Santini Plaza, where you have seasonal residents and residents shopping.
But are we just going to give them to anybody, or do you have to show that you live around here so it'll be reused here? I mean, I'm not sure what the point is if we're just going to send them home to Iowa with somebody. That's as a
good point.
souvenir. Well, that's another conversation.
Yeah. Well, my feeling is with this, sorry.
Since we're trying to encourage people to come to Bay Oaks, maybe we could give them out from Bay Oaks, and that way they're more likely to be town people and get people to come there. And Joanne had mentioned earlier, when I think not everybody was listening, we should put the recipe for the weed killer in the bag, which is an excellent idea.
Yeah,
And
that's
other
a good
environmental
idea.
things. We don't want to necessarily create trash, but we have, the yard the yard program that we have, the Prism brochures, the Rain Barrel. So we have a lot of different important things. And they did that at the Bay Oaks when they did the
Environmental
symposium.
Yep.
they fill those up with things.
Yep, the BAO staff was very awesome in helping to get those stuffed, because there's a lot of bags to stuff.
So what's 3,000 bags ultimately costing us?
We told them give us as many as they could for $10,000 or less.
So $3 a bag.
Now,
$3.33, something like that.
yeah. Now, I think that the first iteration of this, since the town is paying for it, it kind of makes sense that we should make a point of trying to give them to town residents, the business owners as much as possible. If we do another iteration and it has sponsors on it, then I think maybe the game changes a little bit, and they may be more interested in getting them distributed to potential customers who are not on the beach.
You get your hurricane pass, you get a bag.
You know, another thing, I know it's crazy, but we now have the list of the rental units on the island, short-term rental, and they've all paid, and they may not necessarily be happy about it. But I know when like my little guest house, it's just family, but I hang a bag there, a fabric bag there, hooked by the door, so that if they're going some places, they have a bag. And when I went to Aspen, the hotel, they had a bag there, and it said, please leave this when you're done. You can take it if you want, but please leave it when you're done. We're an environmental community. We're trying to go without plastic bags. So it makes you wonder if we shouldn't work through some of the rentals, give them something back, the short-term rentals, let them, and give a little something, a sign that they would put by their door, where they would have that bag, they'd have a little something, say, this is what our community is standing for, please use this while you're here.
We had wanted to, like originally, we had these, like, I wanted to eventually get them in all the hotel rooms and all the rentals and put a little, like a luggage tag that says that, exactly what you said. Please reuse this. You're welcome to take it with you, or you can leave it here for the next, yeah, what was that hotel where she looked at me like I was crazy? Oh, we can't put those in the rooms.
Time and a half.
Okay, I don't know if it's because you have to wash everything, and I said, well, they're washable. She said we could put a big stand by the door with the sign that says, use this bag while you're here, put it back for the next, or whatever. She would do that. Also, they said they do that at the library, because all the snowbirds come and get a bunch of books, and they use the plastic bags to carry them. And then Dr. Hommerding said he would put a thing there that said, use these for your bags while you're here, and then bring the bag back. So there's a lot of things we can do to keep them on the island. You're right, and the little tag was...
One other thing, at Publix, they sell their bags rather cheap, 99 cents, I think, right?
Yeah.
And, but, they're just there for sale. You wonder if they shouldn't have a little, if we couldn't get Publix, if not get rid of their plastic bags, at least say, this island is trying to work toward plastic-free. Buy these bags if you want. Maybe they'd even do something.
They did do that in Coral Gables as a way to tell people, we're not offering, I don't even think they sold them, but they said until the supplies ran out, they did give away their reusable bags. And I want to say it was Coral Gables. It was kind of a, I'm sorry, it's inconvenient. We're not going to have bags, but here, have a, reusable bag. Because people weren't used to it, and then nobody brought them, so.
You know what? Costco has made millions of dollars, and they don't have bags.
No. Neither does Aldi's.
Now, one idea too, I guess, and we talked about putting tags on some of them, is that we could even, you have a graphics on one side, and we really don't have anything on the other side. We could put thank yous. We could also put that text on here, saying, please, use this bag, reuse this bag, and leave it for the next person. Yeah. Of course, people, I'm sure a lot of them will still go walking, but.
Most of them will still go walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially with the graphic. You're exactly right.
So we will, I'll work with Ray about making sure we know what bag we're talking about.
Yes,
I'm happy
that would
to
be
know
great.
That they're on the upswing.
I would like to make a deviation real quick. The small changeable signs that Murph had requested from council a while back are here. So I brought an example if anyone would like to see. We do need to get some hardware, but we still have money budgeted out for hardware. We just weren't sure what kind of hardware we were going to use because they're going to be interchangeable. So I don't know what type of hardware would be best for that.
Save our shorebirds.
Yes.
And not no dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not negative, yeah.
So, ta-da.
Very nice.
What do you mean when you said interchangeable?
Well, there's yes.
Yeah, we're going to rotate him through. So, yeah, and like we'll only put signs out about turtles during turtle season, instead of all year round, things like that.
It's great.
And where will they go?
The beach access is facing this, so people see when they walk out onto the beach. And I'm envisioning things like on the post with the dog bags,
Oh, yeah.
the waste bags, and things
Instead
like
of
that.
another post.
Those
we're gonna use
plastic
that
bags?
one. Yeah, the plastic, the same, we're gonna use the same post, so we don't have to have another post.
Plastic dog bags.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Hey, I've been over that. I want the compostable dog poo bags. We've been over the plastic bag on the beach thing, yeah.
And so what we'll do, I'll put it on Murph's list. We'll come up with a kind of a distribution plan for the bags to present to council, see, because you're paying for it, so make sure it's going where you want it to go.
Do you include what these signs cost per?
Yeah, it was,
Oh, it's like $20 a piece, wasn't it, or something?
No, that's not bad.
And I
it
think,
was less than that.
because the total for the signs was around $320.
Are these stainless?
Yeah,
Or aluminum.
aluminum.
they're
My bad.
aluminum.
Yes, you don't.
High quality, no.
And I think we got like, what, 6 different types of,
I think it was
6
more than that.
It was multiples of the
Ye-
6 different ones.
Yeah,
yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry for the deviation, but I figured Murph would
No,
appreciate
I mean, we
getting
will-
to see them.
I'm really happy to see those. Yeah, and we do have our interpretive signs that we've been working on for a long time are out now and installed.
Yes.
And I see on Connecticut Street, I see a lot of people looking at them.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I'm not doing any kind of scientific study, but when I'm out there doing my thing. Okay, so we'll come up with a distribution plan for the bags. I'll make sure we're on the same page with Krusty Pete's. And I did put the artist in touch with Krusty to make sure that everything is printable.
Yep.
As it sits. I'm not sure about, I mean, the feedback I get is that a lot of people don't like the little sun there. That it kind of takes away from the text.
You know what it is? It's that it doesn't match the rest of the drawing. This is all,
Heavier,
it's just
perfect,
perfect, and
heavier
this is
outline.
all, yeah, I would take that out.
Yeah.
And I also want, I did request that the town of Fort Myers Beach be more
Yeah.
prevalent, and a couple other little things.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of minor changes on this.
Okay.
And
Good.
he will hand letter it if you want, but it's easier to change when it's just a font.
Yeah.
So, okay. Reef safe sunscreen ordinance. I've seen this. Key West and Hawaii have adopted an ordinance.
Yes. I have articles about them if anyone would like me to pass them around.
I'd
And
like it.
Dermatologists say, geez, I don't know so much. I'd rather have people not get skin cancer.
I also have a list of ingredients for sunscreen chemicals to avoid as well, if anyone is interested in
To avoid for the water or for your skin?
that. For the water.
You mean, these chemicals are bad for water?
Now, one thing I'm curious about is I know they're bad for coral.
Yes.
We don't really have a lot of coral unless you go way offshore, right?
Way off.
It's still being put into the water, and it's something that continues in the water column. It's not just going to stay right here on shore at this one small place.
It's like putting money in a bank.
It adds up. So LPA had mentioned this, and in passing to me, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. We should start working on that. So figured it'd be a good item for discussion.
And it's for sale at the Mound House.
Oh, and it had, what's her name too? Tuckaway.
Oh, sunscreen that's safe.
Reef Safe. She went to Tuckaway. She went to Sanibel and they had it. She said, "Oh dang, I forgot mine." She thought it would be real expensive and it was reasonable, and so she has it at her place too.
I would be interested to know the effectiveness as a sunscreen of these compared to the ones with those chemicals. Because
I've
there's a
heard
reason
both.
why they're using those chemicals.
Yeah, I've heard both. I've heard some positive
Well,
reports
we have
and
a
some negative.
pharmacist here. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah.
See what you're doing, I haven't seen it yet.
Well, are you aware?
Those are effective and safe, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. But there's like 2 chemicals in particular, right, that are an issue.
What's the name of the good one?
Well, there's
Brand name?
like a brand name. There's Reef Safe sunscreen brand.
Reef Safe sunscreen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the chemicals. the key.
And give me a second, I can find them.
Reef Safe sunscreen. Okay.
Okay, so, I'm all pro environmental stuff. This seems like one of those things that would be impossible to enforce.
Yeah.
That makes you wonder if it isn't more of a stewardship, educational kind of thing where we work with, like you walk in CVS and there's got bazillions of them. you know, would they consider having a sign with some information saying we prefer, or
Mhm.
consider whatever, CVS, would they put a sign?
Like a
We
beach
consider.
display,
I'm not sure
It's
how
either
else.
that or we go the route of the straw ordinance, which is keeping, you know, non-reef safe sunscreens out of stores that are here on the island and only having.
Here's
ju-
the thing
that-
about
yeah, no,
sunscreens.
that's
that is a whole heck of a lot of education.
Yes.
Because people are brand loyal to their sunscreen.
Yes.
If you use copper tone and you've used it since you were 6, that's what you're going to buy. You're not going to buy Hawaiian Tropic or Australian Gold or whatever the newest Tom Buck and Terry is. I mean, I think it'd be interesting as a retailer. I would carry Reef Safe and with some, you know, proper information about it. I think that's a great idea. I sure don't. I sure would hate to see you try and make people go off of their brand.
Yeah.
They won't.
Yeah.
They'll buy it at Walmart.
There's also a couple of other brands out there. There's Think Sport. There's Stream to Sea.
There's what? Stream to Sea?
Yes. Stream to Sea. And that's a number 2, as opposed to the letter 2. There's Coral Safe.
Have you seen any of these at Walmart or CVS or?
I have seen Stream to Sea around in other locations, but the other ones I have not yet, aside from the Reef Safe, because obviously I've seen it at Mount House.
Well, it's kind of like me with the non-glyphosate. I need to go to each of these places and ask them to carry it. So what we could maybe do as a task force is go to every location on the island. I know Goods is a really friendly place, and they'll probably carry it if we ask them, and put a display out.
Stream to Sea has lovely packaging.
Yes, they do.
That would sell just for the packaging.
Well, that's, you know, okay. Jumping all the way back to the glyphosate thing. I mean, I don't know if this, again, is feasible or not, but when Austin's making up a batch of his weed killer, is this something that we could allow people to have access to try to displace the glyphosate, maybe even in the stores?
The ingredients are so available. I've been making it myself for years. So I think if we just provide the recipe to people, they'll do it on their own. It's cheap, it's available. So the people that we educate about it, I think will do it rather than, because the town storing large quantities of liquid around is really not feasible.
We don't have the space for it.
Right.
As a follow-up, you just had a nice article in the Observer, maybe as a follow-up. Now you can provide the recipes, the winning recipes. People love recipes.
Well, the reason I wanted this to be an ordinance is because more than half the town is rental properties, and they all utilize commercial lawn care companies. And there's a house right next to Mount House, and their yard is spectacular. And I know that they're just soaking it with whatever they can. And people who come down and they're only here, or rental properties that it's all different people, they don't know and they don't care and they don't pay attention. So if you make it mandatory, I had a clause in the ordinance that says that somebody like me, probably, is going to sit at a desk at Town Hall with a phone and call these places that do, every place that does business. I know she's laughing at me. Hey, I'm not like working full time like you. You call each place that does business on Fort Myers Beach and you fax them a piece of paper that says you acknowledge that we have banned glyphosate. You will not spray that on our, and then when you sign it, you fax it back, and then we give you a sticker that's like a green leaf that says FMB or something, and then they put that on their trucks. So you're going to know, this company knows they cannot spray glyphosate. And the only reason I wanted it to be an ordinance because Roxanne, me, you, we're 6,000 people. How many people are here now? And all those houses are full of, and the condos are full of places, and commercial lawn companies do all the spraying. So they have to really be the ones. They're more than half of the spraying is done by commercial, and that's why I wanted it to be mandatory.
Oh, I agree. It
Yeah.
should be.
And
I
then
think
wanted
we
a
all.
certification.
Is there anybody who doesn't want to do that as an ordinance? I agree it should be an ordinance, but then also we should educate people on what else they can use, like for private people who live around. That's the
And
point I
that's
was
why-
making.
And that's why I called her to do it, because I did, stuff like this, like in the paper, so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You soften the blow a little bit. You're saying you can't not kill your weeds, but you say instead of using this, we have an alternative.
Well,
And
maybe we can have a 2-month thing where it's available at the town if you want to try it, come get a free whatever. I don't know, something. Maybe there's a little bit in the budget for
What's
that,
the,
I don't know.
but what's the liability of the town handing out chemicals? I'm not sure.
Well, it's not.
Well, they're pretty inert, really, aren't they? I mean,
It's 30% vinegar, and it's a little more acidic than the Walmart, which is 5%, and then it's salt, and he puts the cinnamon oil in there, so you can walk on it, you know.
So, my thought, my thought was after I was here the first year, they saw was approaching, and we had sand, and we had bags, and people in the middle of trying to, get ready for the storm and get their shutters up and take care of their dog and grandparents and whatever and everything else, that they had to come here and start filling up bags with sand. So we filled up a couple hundred bags with sand, and fortunately this season we didn't have any hurricanes and whatever. And I think this is another thing that we could look at, that, hey, you have a container, you bring it, we could, have a 55-gallon drum with a tank, and, it's, I don't know, $3 for 16 ounces or whatever the heck it winds up being mathematically, and we could have it and, come in, we come to the cash register up front, we give you a little ticket, and you go out in the back, and you could pump your thing, and we could have certain hours, not necessarily all day, every day, but a couple a day, a year or something like that, and see if it takes off and see if there's some support, and, I think help, kind of putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, if we're really going to try to get this done.
Well, if everybody's sincere about what they say about red tide and pollution and everything else, this is one of the steps, right? It's like a 10-prong, this is one of them. And so, put your money in your mouth and your actions, put it where where it works. And this is something that everybody can do.
I've been waiting to say this. I believe in 99% of all we've discussed today. But I get very frustrated by the fact that we're not spending any time talking about advocacy about what's coming down the river. Because all of the stuff that we're doing, I believe, is a minuscule percentage. We're being affected by what's coming down the river. There's no coincidence of the timing that our water looks like crap when they open up those floodgates. And I think that we need to also talk about that, not just always be policing ourselves. We need to be advocating. I think we need to figure out when all of these various meetings are, the South Florida Water Management District, the Corps of Engineers, all those people. Bruce went to one of them, and decide which ones are most important and start sending people to them.
I agree with
I'd be willing to be one of the people that makes trips to go.
No doubt. No doubt. That's all part of it. But
So I don't know if we want to give that to Murph to decide which meetings are the
We give
most,
it to Ray.
or give it to
because that way
Ray,
she
that
could-
Ray could give us a list of meetings and then we could divide that up between ourselves. Because I think we cannot be complacent about our advocacy. We've got to keep screaming constantly about this.
Is that too much to ask, Ray?
No, I'll be happy to look that up and give you all the details that I find.
Perfect.
don't.
But what I'm looking for are the meetings that are the most important ones, the ones where decisions are actually being made.
Well, just to speak to that real quick, there's a couple of things about that. One is that I think there's been an effort that the municipalities, the Lee County municipalities, try to advocate together. I think that's a very, very good tactic. And frankly, there's so much going on that I don't know that we could always ever cover everything that's going on in that arena. But that being said, I think it's important that we talk about getting stuff on the website. We should have a page dedicated to that, from the standpoint of making everyone aware that there's a meeting going on, and maybe a committee member, maybe one of the council members, maybe just the public at large who's watching the minutes, watching the agendas, because they could have a meeting that has nothing to do with water quality, and they could have a meeting that has 7 things to do with water quality. But to get that information out there about the meeting so that everyone collectively can monitor, and of course when we pick up on a meeting that we know that there's something on the agenda, or potentially on the agenda that's going to be an issue, that of course we could give everyone advance notice so that we turn out, the other municipalities turn out, and
our residents, I don't want to use the word citizens, but everybody emails people, know a list of who to contact, and people can email people and call people to say, hey, we're concerned about this issue and what you're proposing to do. So I think we can, you know, if there's something we're going to use our website for that's really important, I think that would be it.
That's a major piece of the pie, no doubt about it. But there's no, you can't underestimate what they're doing here with this fertilization stuff. You lead by example. I mean, we passed this law, and we live by it. Benita lives by it. Naples lives by it. It goes up and down. That makes
I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree.
That's a major impact. Major.
It may be a major impact, but leading by example doesn't work with people who have a ton of money and a vested interest with continuing to pollute us. They're not going to follow our example. Pressure, political pressure is what's going to work.
That's another fight. There's all kinds of fights with this cause here. There's all kinds of fights. And I'm with you on that. I'm with
I wasn't saying that we don't, I waited until everybody talked about it, and I said I agree with 99% of all these things. I'm just saying this is another thing that we've got to do.
No,
And I think
there's no
that,
doubt.
I think that if we aren't careful and make sure that we talk about this at a council meeting and we know who's going, so that I don't assume that Anita's going or someone else, that we get these all covered.
When I talked to all the council members about the fertilizer and glyphosate, I had a watershed map, and I showed it to everyone, and Bruce said, well, you're talking about Lake O, and I can't do anything about that. And I said, I'm not talking about that. I was just showing, like, there's a ton
Here's how we're connected.
Well, I said, I can do something right here, right now on Fort Myers Beach. And we did something with straws. Well, Miami Beach did straws, and then we did. But then Sanibel followed, and somebody else followed. So we were kind of hoping, and we did discuss this, that it's going to be a domino effect. So we really need to be strong, and I doubt Sanibel will ever ban it because they have their golf courses. But if you ban it residentially, we were hoping for the domino thing with this. And
Well, it's advocacy. You know, it's another form of advocacy. You're putting the word out, and it gets in people's head, and people start thinking about these things. And if they weren't thinking about it last summer, I mean, something's wrong.
Well, you know, I agree with Roxana 100%, because the big thing is moving the needle,
That's right.
preventing red tide, preventing the toxics coming down here. You got to move the needle. But I'm all for the local stuff too. But the big hit is moving the needle. And, you know, that's what we used to talk about at work all the time. We'd say, oh, we've got this little thing, and let's save paper clips. But, hey, we're losing $1 million a month because of this. That's what we need to be focusing on. Don't worry about the paper clips today. And you're right. We need to have an understanding of where we can go and participate in that. And, you know, I wrote a letter to the Senate president the other day, and I got a nice form letter back, and it said, oh, we believe in water quality, and we're going to spend $61 million. And I wrote him back and it says, hey, I asked you about $625 million. What's your answer on that? Well, today I saw in the paper that they did pass the governor's bill in the Senate for the $625 million.
It was probably because of your letter.
I'm sure it was. You're right. Thank you, Bruce.
Yes. But
But
we don't know
it-
what the
it
other
matters.
side's going to do now.
That's right.
So we still got to go again. And quite frankly, I don't think our local politicians, county commissioners, and our local representatives here have been carrying the flag at all over the past few years. Now I think they're probably a little scared, but a couple of years ago, you know, this didn't mean anything to them.
If I told you what they've told me over the years, it'd make your head spin. You'd be embarrassed to live in Lee County if you knew what they said.
No, I believe it.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things that I was going to bring up yesterday when we were talking about committees and appointments and whatever was that the Mayor's Alliance has been doing this, and quite honestly, the mayor's got on water quality when a few years back when I was the mayor, people were back in those days. Randy Henderson, Kevin Ruane, and Marty Sawicki were in DC lobbying, and I texted him a picture of the beach, and I said, I hope you're mentioning this. And the very next day, we started to convene meetings. But I think it has to be more than the mayor. I think it needs to be the entire city council, the entire town council. I think it's very nice that the mayors represent the group, but everybody knows that numbers count. So if it's the mayors are there, But hey, for example, if I'm speaking and I say, and here's Rexanne Hossafras and Joanne Champ and Bruce Butcher and Ray Murphy, this is our whole entire town council. I think that's a powerful statement.
We did it in Tallahassee before.
We sure did.
Before before Governor Jeb Bush.
We sure did.
And
That was a
and
critical
his whole
decision.
cabinet. And it was wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful. So
Yep.
it works. They
So-
want to hear from the elected officials. That's why I wanted to get back on council again. Because, you know, you can go up there and you can go up there and you can go up there, or I could go up there 6 months ago, and you're just another person. But when you're an elected official, it makes a difference. They're listening because they know you have constituencies, and they're also their constituencies. So they listen. But, you know, you have to keep at them.
Yeah, for sure. So that's good. I think that'll be a good thing for us all to do. For all of us to be partaking in it, not just
Right.
one.
Okay, well, a lot of these points actually were scribbled on my list further down, but I do agree. I mean, you know, they're talking about what's like hundreds of times their target of pollutants are going into Lake O. And, I mean, we're talking, like hundreds and thousands of tons of this stuff, and we have a pretty small amount. But I think really by doing this, we're setting an example and we're avoiding hypocrisy.
You can't be there you go. You can't be hypocrites.
You can't always point your finger up the river and blame everything on the river. You know, and I'm not saying, Rexanne, that it's not a big problem, because it's huge, and we all know it's huge. But you can't continually point your finger up at Clewiston or up above the lake. You have to take care of your own backyard too. And I think this is what we're doing.
Now, as far as coming up with like a, you know, call to action group that will attend meetings, even though I understand, you know, numbers do matter. Elected officials may have a better voice when you're speaking, but if there's a bunch of people there that are
you're
backing them
absolutely
up,
right.
No
that
doubt.
looks good.
No
I
doubt.
do think, though, from a cautionary tale, that it's probably not a good thing to have Murph do, because then it prohibits us from talking about it outside of the meetings. And the once a month
Right.
thing really slows things down.
No, that's why I said
So,
that it should
yeah.
be.
So I think, you know, if Ray comes up with a mailing list, then we can support that
Yeah.
as individuals. But I think when it
Yes.
gets in the committee, it kind of makes things
Exactly.
awkward in the sunshine.
Bill, didn't you used to have a beach Facebook page that
Still
you
do.
put things on? Could you like post things on there and say, hey, a group's going to this meeting? Use that
I can.
Facebook page?
I think I've got like 20 people or something who look at that.
Well,
page.
but, you know, we could get all the town council on it and get all the Murph members on it, so at least we could communicate.
And
Like
Anita,
Mark
I'm
did.
sure the mayor's group has a list of all the meetings, you know,
Yeah.
because
I
of their
haven't
water
been to a
quality
meeting
group.
yet with them, but
Right,
I'll
I'm sure you'll
follow
be able to do
up
that
on
and
that, absolutely.
provide that.
Yes.
They're doing a lot of that work.
And, you know, bullsugar.org, they always list the meetings,
Yes.
and Brian Mast's office over there, and Stuart, he lists all the meetings. I mean, it's available. It's available.
Yeah, but I think you're right. You know, you also want to avoid fatigue. So like you were suggesting, finding out the meetings where they're actually making decisions, where, you know, and even if we have to go somewhere where you're going into the other territory, the farm territory, where they think that we're all coastal elitists, it's still a good place to go and have your voice heard. Okay, shall we move on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
What's your Facebook page, by the way?
Respect our beach.
It's like Mark List is always out there with that mosaic business, you know. I mean, if someone was doing that for the fertilizer, it'd be,
Yeah.
well, he is doing it. He's doing it for the fertilizer.
Yeah.
For the
Okay, what's our next item?
Okay, ways to reduce, and actually one thing I really want to do is just kind of brainstorm too about what we can do for the water quality, but I think we've kind of addressed that. Ways to reduce plastic trash. Now, one thing that's sort of interesting in the statistics here is that plastic bags are the second most common beach litter.
What's number one?
Cigarette butts.
Plastic bottles.
What?
And you look around here and you see a lot of plastic bottles. Now,
Look at us.
I wasn't going to point any fingers. But anyway, I think we really haven't talked about this at Murph yet, but I mean, there's a couple of simple things we can do. One is I know that here in Town Hall we have water bottle fillers.
Yep.
Are they in Newton Park too?
They have them at Bales.
So to, you know, we coincide with some other things we're doing, like, you know, we're talking about coming up with maps or an app, is have a location of where water bottle fillers are and put signs up at places like at Newton Park or by Town Hall saying, you know, fill your bottles here, as a way to encourage people to not use, you know, the
People
one
are
use bottles.
enamored with the bottled water.
Yep.
I'm not, but I mean, does plastic water
It's not
bottles
brown
is-
enough.
And you know the other problem, like, we all have it where guests come from out of town, and I'll offer them a glass of water, even out of the fridge, you know, whatever. They're like, "Do you have any bottled water?" I'm like, "We're not in China. The water here is good. We've got
right.
great water.
We're
It's
drinking
city.
it almost.
We've got great, safe water. Drink it. I'm not giving you plastic bottles."
Well, we have
But
a
I mean, that's what people do when they come to visit, and we're a visitor island, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we have
Yeah.
yeah, you know, we have a quality water filter. That's what we drink. So, but we do, you know, like you say, you know, you're going out fishing or something. You know, you have a bunch of plastic bottles to take. But it's a way to kind of try to change people thinking, let them know there are alternatives. And they say even if you're, you know, just refilling your plastic bottle instead of opening up a new one, that's a step.
I have to tell you though, do you know the amount of products that are on the market for, like Steve's got, that you look at yours, Tervis, I mean, just tons and tons of products. Yeti has made a fortune on it. All of them to eliminate plastic and go to other types of thermos type products. There's tons of them,
And then maybe
I mean, I
something.
sell them.
Yeah, and there may be something we can do similar to the bag program. Is come up with you know, a cheap reusable bottle that has a environmental logo.
But maybe that's part of our message here, though, is we have great city water. You don't need to buy plastic. I mean, on our bags.
It's expensive, but it's good.
Yeah, we
I'm
do.
just saying in our messages.
Yeah, we do. You have to skip the straw, no styrofoam.
Yeah, but I mean,
But it's a minor
we
issue.
can say
but-
our drinking water's great. You know, you don't need bottled water. I'm
Plus,
just
it's good for
mentioning.
your teeth.
Yeah.
The fluoride's good for your teeth.
Buy a corksicle at Cool Color. Corksicle's the new one. Yeah, corksicles, swig.
Yeah.
Oh, there's just tons of them, tons of them.
So that's something we can put on Murph's list to come up with a plan,
Yeah,
a water
good
bottle
idea.
plan.
Great.
Anything else?
Oh, yes, can I please just take like 5
Yes,
seconds? I'm
Shan-
sorry, I'm so sorry.
No,
That's what we're here for.
All right.
Shannon's, you know, Shannon's a vice chair,
Yeah.
and her passion really drives a lot of the agenda on Murph,
Yeah.
I have to say.
Sorry, I talk a lot, but I talk fast, so it won't take long. Okay, Ray and I had the opportunity to go over the, I had questions about there's a protected, all native trees are protected on Fort Myers Beach. And I had Ray come out and we had some questions. I had some issues and some things I was talking to her. And there's a clause in there about, okay, all native trees are protected, but if you live in a certain subdivision,
Not a certain subdivision. If you live in a subdivided lot, so any subdivision within Fort Myers Beach.
then it says that you can take out 3 native trees per year. I think that's ridiculous. Why do we have a protected tree ordinance if you can still take out 3 native trees per year? And I see people out there, not like coconut palms, those are sable palms, cabbage. I've seen people with, you know, their own, a homeowner out there with you're not supposed to be able to do that. It's a protected all native trees, live oaks, you know, the gumbo limbo, all the native trees we have. We don't have a lot of the big live oaks. We don't have a lot of old growth. And a lot of the stuff that's in the new construction is the Christmas palms and the foxtail fern, you know, the gray Bismarck palms. They don't really plant a lot of the native stuff, and nobody plants live oaks. So I was going to ask if you think maybe we could take that clause out so that you have to get a permit regardless. The ordinance right now says you have to get a permit for any native tree removal, and there's only like 5 criteria. If it's in the power lines, if it's an empty lot and it's in the middle and you want to build your house up right there, if it interferes with your ability to park, if the tree is diseased or it's been diseased by fire, struck by lightning, it's going to fall on your house. I forgot the other one.
If it's causing imminent danger to falling on someone, falling on your house, falling on your car.
So that's the only reasons you can get a permit to cut down a native tree. I've seen,
How many permits have been issued?
Good question.
I don't know, Ray will be raised.
Zero would be my
Well,
guess.
nobody asks, and then the tree
Exactly.
company,
Well, that's my point.
okay, yeah.
There you go. You're hitting on it. The
Yeah.
tree company.
Okay. Okay, so, I would like to be able to know that a tree is going to be, but nobody knows this. Like, the tree companies just come and cut it down. They don't know it's an ordinance, so any tree company, I would like to, like I said before, someone has a lot of free time to sit by a phone and do this, and have the tree companies or whoever, arborist, is gonna know that that's a, so, because in our ordinance, it says that they can be fined. But I know, a lot of trees are being cut down, and they're protected, they're native, and there's no permit. Ray doesn't get permits for this, and they're just coming down, so I wanted that clause to be.
It seems to me, Ray and Roger, it seems to be that you would have to have landscapers, we're talking about fertilizer, glyphosate, trees cutting down. It seems like you'd have to have business licenses for landscapers who do business on the island, whereby they come in. And we don't have a business license, do they?
No.
And it seems to me that that's the catch-all, that we decide to do that or we don't.
Yeah, because this is all of my research that I've done for fertilizer over the couple of years that I've been working on this. So we go off of Lee County's fertilizer permitting service. So you go to the tax collector, they actually have a class for all of the gardeners and landscape workers and to be a Lee County, certified business. So you have to pass those classes, and you get a sticker on your car. And so the town, in our code, goes off of that Lee County requirement. So basically, we're passing the buck off to Lee County and be like, hey, okay, you're already doing this, so you keep on doing that, and we're going to go based off of your sticker requirements without issuing our own. Just go off of Lee County. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Well, I mean, Greg actually looked up on his phone, and Lee County has protected trees as well. Yeah, and so the guy that I was talking to, the arborist, said he's not aware of any extra Fort Myers Beach requirements, but all of our trees are protected, unless you're in a...
Well, all of our native trees are protected.
Native trees. But I think it's kind of silly to say that if you're in a subdivided neighborhood, you can cut down 3 native trees per year, per calendar year. I think... Yeah, sorry.
Subdivision or per house?
Per house. Well, per property, not per house.
So, having lived next to a house that was torn down, I'm wondering if we need to link to the demolition permit that you can't cut down the trees somehow?
That would be
because
so nice.
They came in, they tore down their house. It wasn't an arborist who cut down the trees. They bulldozed down the trees. They cleared every tree on the lot before they built the house. So it seems like that's one place we could be catching this, would be with the demo permit somehow.
That's interesting thought.
Good idea.
Yeah,
The more houses are going up, they're all 0 lot line houses. That's what's happening in my end of the island. There's no little houses. It's all 0 lot line houses that tower everybody's house.
That might
Looks like Miami's getting over
There
that corner.
is also the possibility of, because we don't have any native tree requirements for residential homes. Our native tree requirements are for commercial or condominium complexes. We could think about having a per square footage requirement for a tree. So like per every 3,000 square feet, you have to put in a tree. Or obviously a single family home is not going to be 3,000 square feet. But yeah, for new construction, you have to keep a native tree on site somewhere, either from what's existing or you have to plant one before we can issue the permit.
now
Sanibel has something similar in their code.
I was going to say, I have a friend who does construction work in Sanibel, and he says a lot of the work is in the vegetation. You have a lot, you want to put a house, you got to take the plants, trees, and move them somewhere else in the lot.
Mhm.
Or if you have to take them down, you have to replant corresponding trees.
I'd be interested in seeing what Sanibel has on their
Would you
books.
like a copy? I have it in my
Great.
big pile of
Mitigation.
things.
Yeah.
Well, is this just something that between you and Murph you can work on and bring forward to council, because it seems to have the support of council, the conceptually. So bring together a little packet of how this can be accomplished, maybe.
Okay, we'll put that on our agenda. Right, Ray?
So trees are now part of the
Yes.
MRF.
Well, you,
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
That's why they brought the garden club on. Patty, yay!
Anything else?
I might
You
make
know,
one
I think that,
Go ahead, Bill.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say that, yeah, because like Sandoval doesn't have a MRF committee. They have a vegetation committee.
We have an umbrella committee.
Sorry, Ray?
Just an announcement to Murph. With the council's blessing, I've invited a group down from Pine Island in Matlacha. They're coming down for our council meeting on the 15th of April. And that's the Florida Commercial Watermen's Conservation. If you're not familiar with them, I'm a member of the group. It's made up mostly of commercial fishermen, shrimpers, crabbers, people that work offshore. And they got together. I was at their formational meeting. There were over 300 people came that night, so it was big. And they got together, obviously, because they got creamed last year, too. And their concern is, you know, everybody's worrying about inshore stuff and up the river, and rightfully so. They're more concerned with what's going on out in the Gulf of Mexico with the red tide. And they're out there all the time. And so they've teamed up with NOAA. And there's a couple of PhDs that are working with them who will also be coming to this meeting. And what their project is, they've got these machines that they drop over the side of the boat when they go out. If they see some funky water somewhere, they suspect there's red tide around here from their observations, whether it be dead fish or turtles or whatever, they can drop this thing overboard down to the Gulf floor, and it takes readings and sends them back to NOAA's headquarters in Miami real time, and they're trying to create a baseline for all the waterfront out here. And from various places too, from 10 miles out, 15 miles out, 50 miles out, 60, and everything in between. And they're trying to create this this baseline and be able to understand the red tide more, because really there's not much going on with that out there. So they're going to come down and speak with us, to us, and with the hope of, I think, with the hope of getting some commitments from the various municipalities and governments along up and down the coast to help subsidize some of these instruments that they use. So anyhow, we'll hear what they have to say. I heard the presentation already up there, and it's excellent. And so I just want to let you know that. And if you're around, come on here and listen.
What's the date, Ray?
It's the 15th, Monday the 15th.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, I just want to, Bill, I don't know if you want to mention the app. I know it's not on the list that Becky's working on.
That's a crab thing.
Yeah, I know. It just, I think it's important because we talked about a lot of educational things. And one of the things that is being worked on is an app to help educate people about the community, and everyone can click on their phone, and people in the community can use Google Maps to add features that'll pop up. So try to consolidate a lot of good information in one place.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is the other committee. We have we call it the Map and App Initiative, where we want to have signs up, like I think that Bruce pointed out, seeing in some other towns, where it says where things are. So like a Heart of the Island sign would show Bay Oaks and the library, et cetera, et cetera. And she is working on an app. She has a draft of it already. That will work on your phone. The one thing in closing, I just say, now we're an advisory committee for town council. Is there anything that we are not working on that anybody in council would like to see us work on?
I think we gave you several things today.
Yeah. You're doing a good job, Bill.
Doing a great job.
Everybody. Okay. it's
Really appreciate all of your
you.
volunteer time and
Yes.
expertise. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
It started to
It's
sound like Big Bang
4:02.
Theory after a while.
This
there.
meeting stands adjourned.
Okay,
Kudos.
thank you.
Yay.
Can't wait to see it.
Hey,
They used to say that
Yeah.
these are
I'm a
not
little
for
surprised
reuse.
it only went till 4.